Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, the big question in Harrisburg is Governor Rendell's agenda in trouble, plus a focus on education. All of that when we return.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, joining me to discuss the big question of the day is Governor Rendell's agenda in trouble. Our two experts, one, Pete DeCoursey, he's the Bureau Chief of Capitolwire, and Fred Anton, a business leader in the state, often on the show. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Peter, let me start with you. Governor Rendell's agenda, is it the problem with the substance of the agenda, or is the legislature just at the moment incapable of pushing almost anything forward?
A little bit of both. Right now we have a legislature, even the House Democrats do not want to move any bill that has taxes, fees, anything like that. And secondarily, they are so weak internally that they have an absenteeism problem, which has made that basically we're in a situation now where the House Republicans have a veto. If they stay unified, and they've stayed unified in vote after vote after vote, then the House Democrats can't pass anything. They're a majority in name only at this point. Right. They're a plurality from day to day, and the House Republicans are beating them on procedural vote after procedural vote to delay the Rendell agenda since September. And right now it looks like Governor Rendell isn't going to pass anything substantive until the budget, at which point he'll have 2 years of agenda waiting to be passed, and the Republicans will only give him a couple of things.
Yeah, Fred, look, in the past, as you know, Governor Rendell has proposed this very ambitious agenda, and it seems to get stalled, and then the legislature moves ahead with a good bit of it.
Well, they move ahead with some of it. They didn't move ahead with a lot of his major programs last budget cycle, and they won't move ahead with them this budget cycle. Let's not forget this is an election year, and let's not forget that I think many legislators are going to be very reluctant to vote for higher spending. And Governor Ridge's agenda, some of his major programs like the Jonas Salk Fund, like the increased health care with the 3% tax, I just can't see the legislator getting enough votes for those programs with them facing the voters in November.
You said Ridge. I think you meant Rendell.
I did.
I know we often do that. We get involved in these discussions. And
I meant Rendell.
All right, Peter, let's pick up on Fred's point. It is an election year. A 4.2% general increase, that's what Governor Rendell has recommended, if approved by the legislature, would be a lower increase. It would be the lowest increase, in fact, approved by the legislature for any Ed Rendell budget. Why is a 4.2% increase with a $500 million surplus and a couple of these small taxes? Fred may disagree about the size of them in a moment. I hope he does. Why is that unpalatable to the members of the General Assembly?
For one thing, it's not 4.2. What the governor does every year is he takes about 1.5 points of the budget, 1.5%, which is what I'll call Republican stuff, projects and programs that Republicans care about. And he takes them out.
Like agriculture and tourism and things of that kind?
Like spraying for flies on the Susquehanna River, $5 million.
Oh, yes.
But if you live in Harrisburg or Wormleysburg or Susquehanna Township, you want that spraying done so the black flies don't come. So, but there's literally 90 or 100 of those. They cost $500 million. And what happens with those is he cuts them out every year. So he's not proposing a 4.2. If you put back the stuff that we've bought every year for the past decade that the Republicans like, that he cuts out every year, and by the way, Governor Ridge cut out legislative stuff too. If you put that back in, it's really 5.6, 5.7. And then there's going to be more because there's stuff that neither of them are counting yet in it. So what you're really looking at is somewhere between a 5.5 and 6%.
Now, Fred, look, last year the Republicans in the legislature vowed that they were going to keep spending below inflation. They vowed it. They didn't do it. It was about a 5.5% increase last year. Now, with all of these divisions that exist and the controversies over the environmental spending, the health care plan, the two big pieces, I think, that would require additional fees or taxes, as some might call them. Given that situation, will the Republicans, particularly in the Senate, in your judgment, hold firm, or will they, as I think they have in the past, give Governor Rendell a good piece of the pie?
Well, as Pete has alluded to, I think the lawmaking function of many of these legislators is far less valued than the ability to bring home the bacon.
There you go.
Now, we've seen an example of bringing home the bacon with the Chester Soccer Stadium and the Chester Development Program. Now, with Senator Pileggi spearheading that,
the majority
leader of the Senate, how can he resist spending for other people's districts?
So this is the tie. So, and if I recall this, and you'll correct me, this is a $450 million project they have going on down there. Is that about right?
Yes, and
but the state share isn't that.
No, but I mean the total project is a huge project. That's my point.
It's a huge project.
It's a $500 million project. 20 or 30 million is coming from Delaware County. Very improperly, 20 million is coming from the Delaware River Port Authority. And that Delaware River Port Authority is in charge of those bridges, and they ought to limit their...
We're going to go to a break, but is this your point? And let me see if we understand it for a viewer. Your point is that when they make a deal on that, and it goes back to Peter's point, when they start making a deal on that, then they say, well, you give me this and I'll give you that, and we're back to that horse trading.
How about every minor league stadium throughout Pennsylvania? Why shouldn't they have funding from the legislature if the soccer stadium is going to get funded?
All right, we'll be back, continue our discussion. Legislative tactics on tap here on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program with Pete DeCoursey, the Bureau Chief from Capitolwire, and Fred Anton, the head of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. All right, first time in 20 years, Fred Anton, the presidential primary in the state of Pennsylvania might actually be worthwhile, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely, it's going to be worthwhile. From March 4th, when the Texas and Ohio primary are, until April 22nd, I believe it is, there aren't any other primaries. And that, both Hillary and Obama are going to be in Pennsylvania. They're going to be spending a lot of time in Pennsylvania. Neither one of them are, as I understand it, going to get to the number of votes that they need to win. So marginal lead in delegates one way or another might enable the leader to claim a victory. So the Pennsylvania situation will be very important.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no scenario under which Hillary Clinton reasonably wins the presidential nomination of the Democrats without winning in Pennsylvania. It's as simple as that. This is a woman who has spent probably as much time in Pennsylvania as any Democrat. She's raised money for dozens of candidates here. She has helped at Rendell here. He's helped her here.
And her father was born, any of you know where?
I do not know.
In Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Father's from Scranton. Yeah, I didn't know.
And she and Bill Clinton have vacationed in a lakeside resort near Scranton. There's some inside information
by the way,
for you.
This may be the first time your readers hear that. It won't be the last time your readers
Viewers,
hear
you do the readers, remember. What did you just say? Go ahead.
Viewers.
Oh, you think that'll be coming up?
Oh, I think she'll be mentioned in that.
All right, Fred, I want to...
It's very difficult in these primaries because the Democratic primaries, by and large, are not winner-take-all.
Yeah,
so, in other words, to get you must get a significant victory. And Hillary is beyond behind enough now. Obama has recently got into the lead, and Hillary's behind him. Winning 51-49 is not going to do it. She's going to have to win 60-40.
You know more about the Republican Party than almost anybody I know. Let me ask you this question. McCain.
Yes.
Will the Republicans rally behind him in this state?
I believe they will. I think they will rally behind them. I think we have a long period of time to play out the ballet of whether the conservatives are going to support.
I'm going to ask you the same question.
Oh yeah, I mean the simple fact.
Pennsylvania. Now you've written a lot about Pennsylvania Republicans over the years. Go ahead.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Republicans are going to get behind McCain because their choice is somebody who doesn't believe in evolution. And the fact is that Pennsylvania Republicans, at least a good chunk of them, believe in evolution, and a bunch of the rest want to be for a winner. And McCain is going to win easily. Mr. Huckabee is not a serious candidate. The McCain folks dodged a bullet when, if Romney had finished second on Super Tuesday instead of McCain, and Romney had survived to Pennsylvania, that would have been a big problem for McCain, because Romney would have had a much better chance of embarrassing McCain. But keep in mind, as a lot of national pundits say, remember, Jerry Brown beat Bill Clinton in a lot of the late '92 primaries. Didn't matter.
Didn't matter, sure. Let me ask you about the role of Senator Santorum in all this. Santorum, of course, was for Romney. His guy dropped out. Does he even live? I don't know if he even lives in the state, but he has a lot of influence here.
He maintains a residence.
Yeah, he has a lot of influence here. Is Santorum going to matter in all of this, in your estimation?
I don't really know. He's been on the sidelines, but I believe he's starting to raise money from some senators. I know of an event that is scheduled. I would expect he'll resurface and play an act.
He could be a big player if he comes into the state and decides to go, go ahead.
Because, remember, in 2004, Rick Santorum saves Arlen Specter from Pat Toomey by going around the state and campaigning hard, telling conservatives Specter's okay. If he, and he also did the same thing for Christy Whitman when she ran for re-election. What people forget is Rick Santorum used to be the leading hardcore conservative who would go around and say the moderates are our friends too.
But remember,
now he's become the guy who goes around. He has an 88% conservative rating. McCain has 82, and he says we don't agree on anything.
But in 1994, Arlen Specter made Santorum possible by helping him, particularly in Fred's area of the state, down in the southeast, in that campaign. So I think over the years, former Senator Santorum and Senator Specter have worked out some kind of relationship. Am I right or wrong about that?
You're right about
But if Santorum gets over his bitter hatred of McCain, and it just spills over as bile when he's interviewed, then he could play a huge role in Pennsylvania, because he could be a huge help to McCain.
We've got to get out of here. But your word is McCain will be accepted by Pennsylvania Republicans.
I believe he will in the long run. He's got work to do, but I believe he'll be accepted.
All right, Fred Anton gets an education update. This is an important one. Governor Rendell has proposed increased spending for basic education. We'll get to that in a moment following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program for our education segment with Joan Benso. She's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Partnership for Children, and Peter Garland. He's the executive vice chancellor for academic affairs in the state system of higher education. Two of my friends, great experts. All right, look, we're going to talk about basic education. I promoted that, but I want to go to something that I'm interested in. Occasionally, the host gets to do, and I know both of you are interested in. Something I can really get excited about. And it's called How We're Preparing Young Folks to Go to College. I mean, this is pretty important. And one of the programs that I think has been growing and it's of considerable importance, and Joan, let me start with you, is this whole notion of dual enrollment. That means kids, I'll tell you what, you explain dual enrollment.
Well, the idea of dual enrollment is to give young people the opportunity to attend high school and college simultaneously. And so it happens in a variety of different ways in Pennsylvania. Some children actually leave their high school and go to a college campus and take a course. It may be a course that requires a kind of teacher that isn't available in that school district. Could be a physics course, for example, or a higher level math or science sometimes, but not always. Or it could be a child that actually stays in the high school and a college faculty member comes in. Or it could be in parts of the state that are pretty geographically isolated. It could be an online course.
Now, Peter, look, we're talking here, I don't know what I saw a figure, and you know, maybe the percentage would be off a little bit, maybe 10 or 15% of high school students, am I too high, could probably be taking courses in college, mostly during their senior year. Is that a wacky figure, percentage,
actually,
or is that too high?
I think the number actually is probably higher than that.
Really?
If you also include some of the research we've looked at from the College Board and the test-taking behavior and the number of students that are actually ready for advanced placement courses and who would likely score 3 or better on that and have those college credits. I think the market is much larger than we think it is now, and
now,
efforts
let me
like
ask you this
will make it better.
I'm sorry for talking over you. I don't have a Chris Matthews moment. I'll get some email about that. At any rate, some people, I mean, we have over 100 colleges and universities in this state, and because a lot of, you know, parents won't want their kids to be away from home,
Right.
why aren't more, I mean, this seems so natural that colleges will say, well, let's, you know, we take 50, 75 kids from, go on, finish my thought.
Right. I mean, we'll take them in. I mean, both public and private, community colleges, state-related, everyone is in developing kinds of programs that take a large portion. If you think of the fact that approximately 70% of our students are prepared and ready to go to college, they want to go to college, they're identifying that in 10th and 11th grade and have skills and abilities that in higher ed we need to figure out a way to tap.
Yeah, now look, let me just, go ahead.
I mean, there are a couple other points, I think, about the governor's dual enrollment proposal that are very exciting on two ends. First of all, his proposed $2 million increase this year would expand access for students, but is highly targeted to children who are low income, who are potentially attending schools where the expectation of young people all to go on to post-secondary education, which they need to do in this environment to sustain a living wage, even if it's a 2-year degree or a trade school, isn't equal as it is in the kind of schools many other children
now, in the long
so
run,
it's a leveling field, which is another wonderful thing.
Now,
but the one other point, Terry, there's been significant debate about college and career readiness in Pennsylvania recently and graduation requirements, how we measure whether a child is really ready to graduate. The state board has been considering some regulations. A lot of the literature on what motivates young people is understanding the relevance of what they do in high school and how that connects to what comes next. So one of the most fabulous things about dual enrollment, besides earning some high school credit early, is it's an incentive for young people to explore what college is like, to explore what careers are available to them, and to be motivated to do well and take the most rigorous courses available to them.
We got to get out for a break, but for me, look, I've taught students who were seniors in high school, and for me, first of all, they were ready to be in college. Some would say, and this is what students tell, it's a waste of time for me to spend my senior year. I've already completed my requirements. What am I? They would say, I'm ready to move on. And there we get into sort of the individual nature of how you learn and who learns what at what age. Am I wrong about that?
You're absolutely right. And Joan and I both have children the same age, juniors in high school, and I can tell you, looking at their course selections, there's a lot they can do in their senior year. All
right, they're in my ear. We're going to a break. We'll be back for the final segment of Pennsylvania Newsmakers following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School. bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
All right, Joan, let me go to you. The governor's budget, he's got more money proposed for additional school districts that need help. Go, take it from there.
Okay, so the governor has actually proposed a very sweeping reform in how we finance public education. The legislature commissioned a costing out study last year that tells us that we have a gap in the resources that are available to fund Pennsylvania public education of $4.3 billion. The governor's proposal in this budget is to enact a statute which in 6 years will close that adequacy gap, make sure every district has the real amount of money it needs to fund public education, and then distribute it in a way that's fair, in a way that's equitable.
And that's to make up for the fact that some school districts don't have the tax base, the resource. They're poor school districts.
Exactly. In Pennsylvania, kids get the quality of education far too often based simply on the zip code they live in. Not because this school district has good administration and that one has bad administration. But we are overly reliant on local property taxes in Pennsylvania. And what the governor has said is the costing out study was right, it's time to step it up. So he proposed $291 million in new funding for public education. And if people are interested in this, there's a statewide campaign developing called PA School Funding. They should just go to paschoolfunding.org and they can get more information on how to get involved.
All right, Peter, let's talk a little about the higher education piece. Governor recommended 3% for the public universities, state system universities. Talk a little bit about that.
I think you see in the governor's proposal some distinction between the state system universities, community colleges, and the general grant funds that are available through FIA. 3% for all those categories. And when we look at the state-relateds, the state-aideds, and some of the other universities, it's 1.5% or less. So clearly there's being a distinction made about those colleges and universities that are serving Pennsylvania, that are sort of the access point for higher education. And I think it dovetails neatly with his initiatives in K-12 education about directing the money where it'll have the greatest impact for the students who need it most.
Okay, we're about out of time, but there's bills in the legislature that deal with limits on tuitions. They haven't passed before. They're not likely to go anywhere, are they?
Not likely to pass. I understand the motivation, and we certainly work hard to keep them down.
But we understand your position. All right, thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well, and we'll see you next week.